I'm setting a timer.
Yep. Okay, great. All right, so welcome everyone. My name is Terry Flip.
I'm Ariana Lee.
And we also have Joe Uke from Sacramento live with us. The point of this channel is this. We are two new fans of the XFL. We know little to no football, but we are very excited to watch it because the games so far have actually been, the ones that we've caught at least.
Really exciting.
Really exciting, absolutely. And Joe, you have been a football fan since when?
Since I was born.
So and it's always been the red and gold for you. So go Niners.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're Seahawks fans, but we also have love for the red and gold, especially with this last season where they did really well. But we're not here to talk about that. We'll get to that in a sec. But it's all for the love of football. We are noobs. Joe is our Sacramento connection to all things football. The rules are a little different in the XFL. So for those who are kind of new to the XFL, Joe, I don't know if you watched any games or know anything about the rules.
I watched my first game a few days ago, and they've changed a little bit here and there, and I'm very new to the XFL. How's that?
The biggest thing that everyone keeps talking about is the kickoff. So let's get Ariana's perspective of the kickoff, like the very beginning. Okay, so what do you think of it? Anything? Just give any opinions.
Yeah, because I don't watch football at all, so my opinion is it's really fast
In there?
in the beginning.
Yeah, because if you don't,
it's not a slow start. Like they just get started.
it's funny because from my perspective, I see things like there's no coin toss. Right? In the beginning?
Yeah.
It's just you're the visiting team, you receive the ball every time. So then there's no 50-50 there. Joe, what do you think of that?
I don't think that makes a big impact. If whoever gets the ball first, I guess if it's halftime, the second half of the game, the other team gets it first. That's what I'm going to guess. But that's the advantage of having the coin flip, is that you get to pick if you want to start with the ball or you want to start with the ball in the second half. And then another advantage is which side of the field that you want to be on. Outdoors, it makes a bigger difference than indoors, obviously, because of the weather factors.
So for people like us who don't really know a lot about what the advantage would be, because you're saying the word advantage, that to me says that it's important. I'd say it can be strategy-wise.
I mean, weather makes sense to me because the advantage of where the sun is lined.
Well, that and I mean, everyone was slipping like crazy when it was raining, right? In Seattle, right?
Right, but I mean, if you pick one side or the other, you're going to be slipping just as much.
No, I'm talking about... So what I'm talking about is the coin toss. You're saying it's the advantage of the coin toss. So.
Because they get a choice, is what he's saying.
Does that make a big difference? Can that make or break a game? Is it like the straw that will break the camel's back?
Not in the end, but it is a strategy for the team that wins the coin toss, because the second half, if they start off with the ball, they have an idea of the game plan of the other team, and so they can strategize over halftime. Okay, what are they trying to do, and make adjustments, and then start off with the ball offensively, instead of being the other way, being the defense. Usually, if you win the coin toss, typically you're going to defer and let the opposing team go first. Like, you show me your hand first.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. That the poker reference.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the strategy it does make.
It's a slower game on the NFL, where the XFL, it's going to be faster pace, and it may not make that big of a difference.
I guess in week 2, and only watching, we've seen about 6.
You've
games?
watched more than me. I think I've only watched 3.
3 games. Still, that's quite a lot out of 8 games, right? So we've made it a thing as a couple to watch an XFL game
every weekend.
Every weekend.
I'm going to have to watch too then.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, as our family grows, as Ariane and I, if we start a family, if the XFL is still around, which I think it will, I hope it will. We'll get excited, and if we ever get a Canadian team, I doubt. So that's the thing is we're Canadian. Joe's our Sacramento connection.
California.
Absolutely. So here's one thing I want to talk about. Actually, there's a player. Before we get actually into players, here's another advantage about coming into football relatively new. So Ariane and I know very few players. We almost know nothing. We're almost kind of learning this as we go along. We're still finding it exciting, even though we know very little. And so names start to pop out at us, right? Unlike in the NFL, we hear names in passing just because of everybody knows who Tom Brady is. Right, you know who that is, right?
Even though I don't watch, I know who he is.
Right, but names are starting to become made, and so
in the XFL, you mean?
In the XFL, yes, absolutely. So, Joe, there's a guy named PJ Walker. He plays for the Houston Roughnecks, number 11, I think. And again, from a new perspective, especially with you, because I understand he's a quarterback. And I understand a little bit of what he's trying to do. But you noticed he was explosive. What do you think of PJ?
He's the one that was just like weaving around everyone, right?
Yeah, for the Roughnecks, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a throw. There was a highlight that you should see, Joe, where he threw the ball, and it almost like he kind of looked under, and it went underneath a St. Louis Battlehawk's arm, and it was like a laser directly to the guy. And the other guy, it was Cam Phillips.
It was like an armpit throw.
Yeah,
it was like, I see your armpit, and I'm like gonna aim right underneath it.
Right underneath it. Yeah, and it was a laser. So that may happen quite a bit in the NFL. I don't know, but that name PJ Walker is making. He's MVP 2 weeks in a row. That's what I've read. That being said. Since he's such a name, a big name sticking out, he might get picked up by the NFL. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
So the perspective that we're going to come at this conversation about PJ Walker is this: when or if he gets an opportunity in the NFL. Do you think that it's a good idea for him to take that opportunity, or do you think that maybe he should kind of look at it from like a not mercenary, but like a startup business perspective? Do you know what I mean? Because XFL can't compete.
Right. Well, XFL is trying to fit into a market.
At least right now they can't compete. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, XFL is like they're trying to capture the market, the huge market. For football players, right? You're not only competing against NFL, but also college ball. So here you have another alternative, and I would guess they'd know they if they can get a percentage of it, they'll be happy, especially in the beginning. But if he was going to be offered a position on an NFL team, I would imagine he wouldn't even think twice about it and go to the NFL, because that's going to the big show, right? So this is kind of a side gig, if you will, and kind of like a minor league, if you will, a AAA league to show off your skills.
That being said, it being minor league per se, like it's not that I don't want to call it minor league, because I understand that the best of the best is in the NFL. What's going on here? Let me just do this. I just want to see the Defenders. It was the Roughnecks. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the Roughneck. Okay, so do you think that maybe? PJ Walker could look at it in an angle of like, why don't I just stay in the XFL, make a name for myself, and kind of like be a franchise player. You know what I mean? And the XFL could offer him equity in the company. So now we're kind of looking at it like a sort of a tech company perspective. You know, do you think that maybe the XFL could do something like that to keep explosive players like PJ Walker?
Like, could they be somebody in the XFL, but if they were to move to the NFL, they'd be nobody, right? So it's like maybe they'd stick around to be famous in the XFL.
Yeah, not to say that PJ Walker sucks or anything. He's very good, but I mean, like, he's good to be an upper echelon,
right?
You know. So do you think that maybe it would be a wiser choice for him to sort of like, I think it's number 11 is what he was, right? It's like, so he's known as number 11, the one of the best quarterbacks in XFL, or, you know.
Yeah, well,
another
XFL, XFL is going to try to keep stars, and because that's what's going to draw people in, is to see the talent there. And you're talking about the scenario where, would you rather be a small fish in a big pond or a big fish in a small pond, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the big fish in a small pond scenario. Depending on how popular the sport becomes, they may entice him to stay. You know, if he's bringing in viewership, then they're going to do anything in their power, or maybe it may even be in their contract already, that you're going to stay with us for X, certain amount of years. And then you get to make a name. You know, you can't sign on with another team or another franchise or a sport, different sport or whatever. So there might be a clause already built into their contract.
So let's talk about some innovative ways that the XFL would want to keep someone like PJ Walker, because he's making like big waves. So what do you think the XFL can do? You've worked in tech for a long time. What do they do to keep top talent in tech companies? Real, like, sort of a...
well, I mean, like you said before, equity, right?
So stock options.
Stock options, which have to vest over time. So you're committed to X amount of time, right? And then I would say, I mean, tech companies incentivize with other like lifestyle things, right? Like flexibility. Bring your dogs to work.
Free food.
Exactly.
Yeah, bring your dog to the field day.
Definitely give them perks.
Yeah, like, I mean, maybe they're more family friendly. I don't know. Like in the NFL, you move around a lot, right? Because you get like traded from team to team. Does that happen in the XFL too?
Some trades have happened already, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, that's okay. I mean, I understand that it can't be that way, because it's going to be real tough to be like, work from home. you can't really do that.
But they pay based on wins, right?
And yeah,
which is like really unique, because then you have the incentive to win, because you're going to split the pot between your team if you win. It's kind
of like golf, right? Like golfers, like, in order for them to get paid, they have to show up for every single hole. And not only do they have to show up for every single hole, they have to win, right? And the more the higher they are in the standings, the more money they make, right? So that's kind of,
So, I mean, maybe that's enough incentive if it starts bringing in enough money and you win and you're splitting the pot every single time.
Well, game balance wise, consider that like it's for the team. So what you don't really want to do is incentivize one single person, because it's,
that's true.
Because if it's based on touchdowns, like he'll never throw the ball if you make it unbalanced that way, right? So what do you think of that, Joe, of like equity and sort of looking at it from a tech perspective?
Oh, yeah, you want to try to keep your top talent, or actually all of your talent. You want to keep them happy, or else they're not gonna do their job or whatever. But we're talking athletes here that they're professionals, even at this level, where they want to do a great job. And the thing is, when you start looking, once you start performing better, then the big NFL is going to look at it and say, hey, I want those people. The key is try to keep them within the XFL with, like you said, incentives. If they're the top, they're going to, again, you're going to guarantee that they're going to have a fan base, bigger fan base and things like that. If you're comparing it with tech companies, definitely more money, right? Money incentives,
True.
perks like that.
Regardless of injury.
Or even
now, let me
even
you know more
of
about
the team, in terms of, like you said, stock options type thing.
From what I know, Vince McMahon owns every single team right now, right? Because he's put $500 million, he's put $500 million into this entire league, owns every team, and that's that's perfectly fine, right? So that being said, what does that, when it comes to football contracts in the NFL compared to like almost anything goes in the XFL, like what is that like contract wise? Because I don't think they're offering equity in any contracts like that. They just get paid so much money. If they get injured, let me ask you that. If they get injured, then what?
Yeah, it depends on what their contract is. And so obviously if you're injured, you can't play. And so they're going to build a contingency in the contract. Because you won't be able to do anything. If you're injured, you're not going to be out there. But if you're talented enough that they want to keep you when you get better, again, that's drawn out in the contract with the player when he first signs on.
So it varies per player. They don't all have a deal if they get hurt.
What might be different though from the NFL is the salary caps of each team. How much money can you spend on players on your team? There's got to be some sort of rules there so they don't load up a team with all the best players, right?
Yeah, it's the best team that money can buy. Then you start getting into the New York Yankees situation. But the thing is, though, is like there's a cap in the NHL, and there's a floor too. I don't think there's any cap in the XFL so far, not that I've seen at least. But I heard that the reason why there's a cap in the NFL is because there's too much money. Like where in the NHL, there's just not enough money. Yeah. They had because Detroit just kept winning over and over and over, and or what I mean? It's just like, okay, well, let's just cap it so that we can't have all these top players going to a guaranteed,
one team
Stanley Cup win.
Right.
In the NFL, I don't think it was because of that. I think it was because the one and done format really that really imbalances the balanced part.
What's the one and done format?
So the one and done format is where in the playoffs, right, when they have brackets, you don't do best out of 7 games.
Oh.
You'd get destroyed. You'd be sore.
So it's just one game and you win and then you move on. That's it.
Yeah. So you got to win every game up to the Super Bowl.
I see.
Right. And they have wild cards too. Now that's actually quite interesting. But yeah. So anyways, so that's what I heard about salary caps and such. So it sounds to me like players in the NFL or just in pro football, they're all what's it called? They're all sort of like their own entrepreneurs or like solopreneurs, right? Because they each get their own contract. They each have to sort of. It's less. It sounds less like employees.
It's the draft, right? Unless you're drafting players from college or new players into the league, there are rules for rookies when they come in, and so you can, again, the NFL draft is where you're going to pick the new players. You're going to have certain money cap for rookies, but once their tenure is over, they become free agents. Then it's whatever deal they can get at that point.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. So, sorry. Okay, so PJ Walker was obviously very explosive for the Houston Roughnecks. What about Cam Phillips? Like Cam Phillips was the other guy he was connecting with the entire time.
Oh, like yeah.
So they're a pair, right? How do you think that's going to affect like the way, it's the connection. What's it called? Like an SF had one, right? It was like, wasn't it Jerry Rice and
Montana.
or what's his name?
Montana, yeah.
Yeah, Montana.
Yeah.
Right? It was like the San Francisco connection or whatever. So, I mean, essentially, that's kind of what's forming from what we've seen. How does that affect with the future of those two players if there's a chemistry there and they know they can connect most of the time? Is that how it works in football?
No, it really doesn't. It's really the ownership and the coaching staff that are going to get the players because – and then see if they mesh.
No,
right?
but what I mean by the synergy is there a synergy? Yeah, is there a synergy with those two players? That's kind of like I want to keep them together.
There,
you know what
there
I mean?
is, and then there's an effectiveness. Just like anything, as it falls down, then they start different combinations. Then it was Jerry Rice and Steve Young, right? Remember that?
Oh,
and then they actually traded off Joe Montana. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs, right? So. And then even with Jerry Rice, he went to the Raiders, and he went to the Seahawks.
And so that being said, with PJ Walker and Cam Phillips, right?
They won't necessarily keep them together.
That's basically what it comes down to. It's not a formula that's going to work every time.
Well, and let's say you're on the Roughnecks, right? And your team is not that good on defense or something like that, right? In a certain area. So you have this star player, and another team wants him, right? They need a quarterback, and they're willing to trade their good defensive players or whatever they need or their draft picks. Then you start making deals. Just like basketball or even hockey. You have a good player, and you can get 5 new prospects, that type of thing, to try to balance out your roster because your team formula is not working. So it's going to be the same thing.
That makes sense. Yeah, and that's a thing. Like in the NFL draft or in any draft, I mean, sure, whatever place you show up at, whatever place you show up at means nothing. You have to watch who's trading for what spot when, for what players. It's like we'll give you the our first round draft picks for the next 3 years for this guy.
Well, yeah,
it just seems like a big gamble to me. But
yeah,
if Tom Brady is a 6th round draft pick, that's what he was, wasn't he?
Yeah. Even then,
yeah.
A lot of players were lower in the draft, and then they perform better in real life.
Well, and so that's something to be said about like being hungry and like, what's that book you read called the Talent Code?
The Talent Code.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Tom Brady even said, like, weren't you listening to that interview where he said, "I'm glad that it happened, that I wasn't chosen first because I turned out better because of it."
No, that was
Or that
Aaron
was someone
Rodgers.
else. Oh, okay.
Aaron Rodgers. And the only reason why she knows about Aaron Rodgers was because we were watching Something About Mary, and Brett Favre was on there.
Yeah.
And then and then we got into how Brett Favre was like sort of like passing the torch to Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, right? So yeah, that being said, our XFL players, do you think that they've got something to prove? Like this, and that's another thing. Keeping these players in the XFL, is that one thing they can do? Is they want to prove that they can last in a new league, a new franchise. Not last. That's not. I guess what I'm trying to say is
they can have like a high impact in a different league other than the NFL.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so you mentioned the talent code, right? So the talent code, I think, might apply here in terms of when people are in the XFL, now upcoming kids will be like, hey, I could be in the XFL. So there'll actually be people pursuing the XFL, not just the NFL.
So you think that the kids are going to be like, well, it's like if you do the math, it's virtually impossible. So the chances are even smaller to get into the NFL.
I don't think they'll think about that. I think they'll just find heroes in both places. And so they might actually actively pursue the XFL because they'll be like, oh my gosh, I love so-and-so in the XFL. I want to be just like him. And they might do the same thing with the NFL. Like who knows? But now there's like a wider pool, right? So there's potentially going to be more kids pursuing this route, knowing that there's a wider place to go. They could go to the XFL or the NFL.
Joe, what do you think of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, when right now players that are, are going to want to get into the NFL. That's the goal, right? But it's so crowded, so competitive there. So you spend your whole life training and dreams to play in the NFL, and then if you don't get picked or you get injured or whatever the case is, you never make it to the big game. What other choices do you have? For playing football. There you have the Canadian Football League, right? But not everybody wants to play there, right? This gives those players that are really good, but not good enough to fit into a team, or they don't have the room, because there's so many players get cut even during the NFL season that are really good
and really talented, players.
So what they do is they train by themselves, right? They try to keep in shape for the next season, or they're waiting for that callback. Just waiting for the season. And so this gives them an opportunity to keep playing the game that they've been training for their whole life. So it's great. And us as fans, we want to see them too, right? We want, here's XFL right now, and it's NFL season's over. What do? We just sit around and wait for the draft, right? This gives us an opportunity to see something and keep that sport alive and view maybe a different twist on it, as long as it's not real weird, and enjoy the game, enjoy the talent of these players. So I think that's cool, because I don't really watch a lot of baseball or basketball, once in a while, but it's not like football. Gotta love football.
It's exciting. It's exciting. Do you think that we're noticing that there are teams that are not doing well at all?
You're always going to get that. Yeah, you are always going to get that.
Yeah. What team?
Who did we watch the weekend before this weekend?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Vipers? No. Was it the Vipers?
Yeah. The Tampa Bay.
Right.
Now you're noticing that when you've watched, it was because I think they played. Who did they play? Seattle.
I think so.
Here,
I can't remember.
Let's take a look. As we have it here. Schedule, scoreboard. Here we go. And we've got the XFL stats. Yeah. The Tampa Bay Vipers and the Seattle Dragons.
Yeah, that was the one that was harder to watch.
Yeah, they came back large. The Vipers are up 9-0?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and then the Dragons just came back just explosive it was almost not really out of nowhere. To be honest with you, watching the Vipers and the Dragons, it kind of dragged for us.
Yeah.
Very defensive.
Yeah.
Very defensive. Nothing wrong with that.
But
as a new player, we're looking for these crazy just bombing connections all the way down.
Yeah.
And before we wrap this up, actually, there's another guy I want to mention, Ta'amu from the Battlehawks. Right? He was a really good player to sort of see.
And he's only 22. I remember that.
Yeah, he is. He's a young guy. Yeah, young guy, right? So, anyway, Joe, we'll wrap it up on this right here, but it's great to get your perspective on someone who knows football way better than us. And if you're watching some XFL, we'll definitely catch up with you.
I'm going to start watching from now on and get myself more educated with it.
Before I let you go, I want to get your perspective on the one of the rules, the 2 forward pass.
Yes.
You could do
Yes.
that, and one team did that. That was the DC Defenders, and it was like it was weird not to see a lateral, and and then a forward pass behind the line of
Yeah.
scrimmage, because that's one rule that I know in the NFL that you can't do 2 forward passes like that. But like, do you think it's a bit of an OP, like an overpowered advantage in terms of like sending a bullet to someone and then sending a bullet again to someone
Well,
else?
it's going to be interesting because it's going to be interesting in how you pick your players now. Because now you can get 2 or 3 quarterback type players, right? And let's say you have a quarterback that can run, right? Now he could be a running back or a quarterback, kind of like we're seeing in the NFL, but it becomes more strategic now because you can forward pass it, and then that guy can forward pass it again, and then a third guy can come in and forward pass it the third time. So it's going to get crazy, but you're going to need talented players that can catch it
And talented
throw
coaches
it,
too.
right?
And I want to mention the talented coaches too, because you have to come up with plays that are effective.
Right.
So that's the thing. I'm gonna send, before I let you go, I'm gonna send a big shout out to Flemlo Raps. He's probably one of my favorite XFL YouTubers. He does NFL and he does all types of different sports, but so far, sorry Flemlo if this is a bad picture of you, man. I was just watching the beginning. You can't see it, Joe, but like he's been great. He's been covering the XFL quite a lot. He's got a great perspective. I just want to send a shout out to him. Thank you, Joe Uke. So for those of you who are into ukulele, check out what's your website?
My website is, what is my website?
Uke T-shirt.
Yeah,
UkeT-shirt.com.
Uke Company.
UkeCompany.com.
Yeah, top hit for ukulele T-shirts, which is very impressive. So, all right. So thank you so much, Joe, for the convo with us. Thank you so much to my wife, Ariana Lee. And we will see you, I guess, week 3.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Peace.
Peace.